Hello and welcome to The Extras. I'm Tim Millard, your host, and joining me is George Feltenstein to announce the June Blu-ray releases from the Warner Archive. Hi, George.
Hello, Tim. Great to be with you again, as always, my friend.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the individual Blu-ray releases for June, and we'll go alphabetically.
Okay.
So that means that first up, we have the 1938 drama The Citadel. What can you tell us about this film?
This is an exceptionally fine film, and it is from a small group of films that MGM produced in England. There was a quota system established, at least before World War II, where basically there had to be a certain amount of films made in the UK in order for them to allow films from the US or other places to come in, as I understand it. I'm not quite sure of all the intricacies of that, but Warner Brothers had the Teddington Studios in England, and MGM opened up a studio in England, and the idea was to bring Culver City talent from the home studio in terms of creatives and at least one or two actors or actresses uh, to the UK for these kind of productions. And the efforts ended up being stymied by the start of World War II in the UK. And then MGM picked up later in a different way, but a much bigger way after the war was over. But the first two titles, the first two films made at the MGM British Studio were A Yank at Oxford with Robert Taylor and The Citadel with Robert Donat and Rosalind Russell. And this was directed by the great King Vidor. He's one of the great film directors of all time, but certainly his association with MGM, went back to films like The Big Parade in 1925. His work is quite remarkable, in my opinion. And this is based on a very best-selling novel of the era by A.J. Cronin. And it's about the medical profession. And it's a really, really well-written, finely performed drama. And Robert Donat, who would later go on to win the Oscar in 1939 for another MGM British production, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. He stars in this movie. Rosalind Russell was under contract to MGM and went from Hollywood to London to be in this film. And then later to be Sir Ralph Richardson is in this movie. And of course, a very young Rex Harrison with hair. Um, it's a really, really compelling movie. The story is very efficiently told. And it won the New York Film Critics Circle Best Picture, as well as the National Board of Review Best Picture for the year. And it earned 4 Oscar nominations. So MGM's efforts in the UK were off to a great start that was unfortunately put to a pause by World War II. And after World War II, they became quite aggressive in making a lot of films at the British studio, which was basically in high operation from the mid-40s right up until 1970. That was the period where MGM kind of fell apart when Kirk Kerkorian became the main stockholder and started destroying the studio assets. And the London studio was one of the ones to go. But that was actually a different physical studio base than this studio.
Okay.
This was a different studio, and there were only a handful of films that came out of there before the war, but they were all really, really good. And The Citadel, most importantly, is a film that's looked really, really awful until now. And we have a new 4K scan from our preservation elements, and it looks and sounds terrific. My colleagues did a wonderful job. The presentation is really wonderful. And we've put some 1938 MGM shorts on the disc. And just because it's about the medical profession, we crossed studios and put on a Warner Brothers cartoon, The Daffy Duck, which speaks for itself, and the trailer's on there. So it's a wonderful package.
I'm looking forward to seeing this with the restoration, with the 4K scans of the best preservation elements. So, I mean, it was nominated for so many awards. So I'm really looking forward to watching this.
The Citadel is probably the least known of these 6 new June releases we're talking about today. And I'm hoping that with this release, it will become far more popular and well known thanks to the quality of the Blu-ray presentation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, next up, George, is a MGM musical, A Date with Judy from 1948. What can you tell us about this Technicolor release?
Well, those of you in the listening or viewing audience for the extras have often heard Tim and I discuss what goes into working with Technicolor negatives for these restorations and the efforts we're able to achieve. It almost looks like 3D. It's just remarkable. This is yet another one of those films. It also happens to be a film that was a big box office success when it was released, and kind of an unusual thing for the era. It was an adaptation based on a very popular radio sitcom. A Day with Judy was on the radio for most of the 1940s. I think it ran from like 1940 to 1950. And on this Blu-ray disc, we're going to put 2 episodes of the radio show so people can hear what its aegis was. But MGM thought it was attractive enough to take some of their, I don't want to say juvenile, but some of their teenage performers and have them be focal points within a story. It's quite a delightful film. It has a lot of music in it. I tend to think of this more as a comedy with music because there aren't that many musical numbers in it per se. Um, and it's not the kind of film where the story is moved forward by the music. Music happens mostly in a performance setting. And that's fine. That's wonderful. But it's really a very cute story about Judy Foster, who's a teenage girl, and her boyfriend, Oogie Pringle, and her best friend, Oogie's sister, Carol, played by Elizabeth Taylor. Now, Elizabeth Taylor was 16 years old when she made this film, and she had blossomed very quickly from an incredibly gorgeous child to an incredibly beautiful woman. She looks like she's 22, not 16. Um, but she's also terrific in the picture. Everybody in the film is really good. And it's basically a family oriented sitcom. And you have the added bonus of Carmen Miranda making her journey from 20th Century Fox, where she had been under contract, and coming to MGM to make 2 films, both of which were with Jane Powell, the other being Nancy Goes to Rio. But Carmen Miranda, along with Xavier Cugat and his orchestra, they provide a lot of the musical performances, as well as Jane Powell herself. And this film is best known for the song It's a Most Unusual Day, which became a very big hit of the popular era of 1948. And most importantly, it's just MGM Entertainment from the land of Pasternackia. And when I say that, I'm referring to Joe Pasternak, the producer, who made more populist films with music, as opposed to Arthur Freed, who made the more sophisticated musicals. And that's why you have Carmen Miranda and Xavier Cugat, and Jane Powell will sing popular music as well as operetta type music. It's all in here, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it was one of the most successful movies MGM had in 1948. It was a big box office success. And Wallace Beery, who's always very tough and gruff, he actually is softened in this movie playing Judy's father, and he's quite funny in the movie. And it's just really a confection that's quite delightful. But most importantly, it's going to knock people's socks off when they see how gorgeous the Technicolor looks.
Right. Yeah. Technicolor, released by Warner Archive. You gotta own it if you are into musicals or
Absolutely.
comedies. That's a pairing that now over the last 3 or 4 years we've been talking on the extras about it is just always a home run. And you have a classic Tom and Jerry on here. I can't remember if you mentioned that, so I wanted to throw that in there.
Professor Tom. We
Right.
did carry over the same short and cartoon that were on the DVD, but we added the radio shows to give it a little more heft. And one of the radio shows has Frank Sinatra as a guest star, so it's really just a lot of fun. It should make a great disc to add to the collections.
Well, next up, George, is the romantic film, The Enchanted Cottage from 1945. What can you tell us about this film?
Well, this is actually based on a play by Arthur Wing Pinheiro, and it was first made into a movie in 1924 with Richard Barthelmess as the star. But RKO decided it needed an update for World War II. This was released theatrically toward the end of World War II, but it was very much a world weary audience that was looking for something in terms of a love story that also had a fantasy aspect to it. And this is the kind of film that many people like really loved because it was very different. It's a different kind of love story. Um, Robert Young plays a soldier who comes back from World War II with scars from the war, and he believes because of his physical damage, for lack of a better word, that he's no longer worth being loved. And he meets a woman played by Dorothy McGuire. She also thinks that she isn't attractive. And their love story actually blossoms into something quite beautiful. I don't want to spoil the plot, but it was so infectious that it was filmed obviously more than once. And we have on this disc 2 different radio broadcasts that kind of consolidate the story. The first is a Lux Radio Theater adaptation that's an hour long that stars Dorothy McGuire and Robert Young, the stars of the movie. But the other one is from 1953, and it's half hour long from General Electric Theater with all different performers. So it's really the underlying play that is kind of transcending generations in its popularity. And this is a film we've had a lot of requests for. It was very successful for RKO. RKO re-released the movie, I believe, in the early 1950s, and they cut, I think, about 15 minutes out of the negative. So I've said that this is a 4K scan of the original negative, but the original negative was unfortunately cut. So we had to use secondary nitrate elements to fill in the footage that had been cut out. So for a long time, all people could see was like this 70 some odd minute version. This is the full 92-minute version that as it originally appeared and looking really beautiful. And I'm just so excited. This is yet another that looked awful until now. And it was just shown at the TCM Film Festival.
I was just going to say that when I had Scott McGee of TCM on to talk about the TCM Film Festival, he mentioned that the director, John Cromwell, is the father of the actor. And
Yes, James Cromwell.
was going to be at the festival to introduce this film. And that was kind of interesting.
And that's, yeah, I mean,
well, and another thing that I noticed here, I was kind of looking at the date. Oh, 45. This is the 80th anniversary of this film. So
yeah.
that
We at the Warner Archive aren't magnetized by anniversaries. You don't need an anniversary to celebrate a great movie. Just happens to be the 8th anniversary.
Right.
But I think the anniversary edition concept has been kind of lazy marketing.
Well, we talked about this, George.
I started it, so I'm responsible for it. I did it when nobody else did it, but that was, when I was a youthful lad. I don't think you need to call that out. It's convenient. It's nice. And, a 50th anniversary of something, a 25th anniversary of something, that's really significant. But, when I see like 15th anniversary, 35th anniversary, it's like, really? How about the movie? Isn't that really what you're talking about? Do you need, what anniversary movies do we have this year?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We try to aim a little higher in what we do. So yes, it's an anniversary, but most importantly, it's a great movie. And I'm glad that you brought up John Cromwell, because he is not that well known past cinephiles as a great director, and he was a great director. He directed many magnificent films, and he deserves more credit. But I TCM, when they were planning their festival this year, they decided to have fantasy be one of their thematics. Right. And I knew that they were going to show the film, and I was very concerned about it because I knew that everything we had looked like not so nice. Let's just put it that way. So I huddled with the powers that are and said, don't you think it's time we gave a new look to the Enchanted Cottage so that when it shows at TCM, it'll look beautiful, and we can therefore release a new Blu-ray? And everybody was in agreement, and here we are.
Yeah. That's great. Well, those are all side notes. It's great that this film is finally coming out, but it's interesting, and it's great to see different parts of the company, working together to be sure that that these restorations happen.
I mean, that's one of the great things that I would love to share with people that are listening or watching this. One of the really wonderful things that has happened at the company that I've been kind of jumping up and down about for many years was we're really unified between divisions, especially with TCM now having been brought into Warner Brothers officially. And my good friend Charlie Tabish, who is TCM in a sense, but is the SVP of programming and has been with the network for 25 years. Charlie reports into Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, who are the heads of Warner Brothers Pictures. And to have people who are making new movies, who love movies, and to have TCM under their imprimatur it saved the network basically. And it's enabled there to be a TCM tour here on the lot. And I myself have always been working closely with TCM, but now it's a company-wide initiative to recognize how well we can collaborate, because we all have the same aim, and that's to please the classic film fan, and more importantly, to cultivate and grow new classic film fans.
Right.
Got to grow the audience.
Yeah, because as we've talked about here on the podcast before, we're already in 2025. So films before 2000 really are already 25 years old. and that's
Well,
hard to
The
imagine.
Matrix is 26 years old,
Yeah.
so
So it's like where do you call it classic? Where everybody has a slightly different definition, but from a just a business perspective, um, you've got to introduce younger people and younger fans, and when I say younger, I mean under 50, under 40, to some of these great films that
well, I'm
enjoy.
also talking about teenagers and people in their 20s. If something is great, it's gonna transcend time and will always capture new audiences. They just need to be led to it.
Right.
And it's hard because with each passing year, there are more and more new films made, and there's also great television being made, and all of this competes for the eyeballs.
Sure.
So we have to make sure that people really take advantage of the great library that we happen to be fortunate caretakers of here at Warner Brothers Discovery and making it available to new audiences.
Well, next we have a drama directed by Robert Wise from an Ernest Lehman script,
I mean,
1954.
just if you think Robert Wise and Ernest Lehman, you're also thinking about The Sound of Music and West Side Story.
Well,
Um,
why I had to mention that they are teaming up on this one.
and the cast for this movie is pretty remarkable. I mean,
Yeah,
the
we're
fact that
talking
they
about
were able to get that many huge stars of the era. And it's a great movie. We're talking about Executive Suite from 1954. Um, William Holden, June Allison, Barbara Stanwyck, Frederick March, Walter Pidgeon, Shelley Winters, Paul Douglas, and Louis Calhern, plus Dean Jagger, Nina Foch, and even Tim Considine, who is the oldest of the first My Three Sons. Um, William Holden was an Oscar winner by that time. Barbara Stanwyck had not won an Oscar. She had been nominated many times, but Frederick March was an Oscar winner. Shelley Winters was an Oscar winner. I mean, this was like a mega super cast. And one of the cool things about this movie is when it starts, you hear the lion roar, the MGM lion roar, but you don't hear any music. There's no music through the entire movie. And at the beginning of the movie, you just hear a bell ringing. And our DVD of this, I believe, was not in the proper aspect ratio. This was MGM's widescreen ratio when they weren't using CinemaScope of 1.75 to 1. So this is in the proper aspect ratio. It's a 4K scan off the camera negative. I know that's starting to sound uh, like it's a repetition. And I speak of it with such pride each time because it doesn't get better than that.
No.
And this is a very modern feeling movie for something that is ostensibly, over 70 years old. It's about the drama of the corporate world. Corporate world has certainly become a lot more complex in the 70 years subsequent. But Robert Wise was already established as a fine film director. And he did some really good work at MGM in the 50s and then went elsewhere to do great work elsewhere. Had a long, wonderful career. I'm happy to say that I did get to meet him a long time ago. Just an amazing, amazing individual. And this film deserves for people who haven't seen it to get to see it. If I were putting double features together, I would say watch Executive Suite and then watch Network. It's that kind of thing. This has got melodrama to it. There's love stories intertwined. I love the fact that Barbara Stanwyck and William Holden are working together again here because she was really responsible for him starring in Golden Boy in 1939 at Columbia. Uh, Columbia really didn't want to give Holden the role, and she fought for him. And there's a wonderful clip from the Oscars that people can see courtesy of the Academy on YouTube, where Barbara Stanwyck was given a special Oscar and thanked William Holden William Holden and Barbara Stanwyck were presenting the year before, and he, of course, died relatively young in an accident. And in between him saluting her on the Oscars one year and her getting a special Oscar the next year, Holden had passed away. So she got her Oscar and said, "This is for you, my golden boy." I get
Mhm.
all choked up just
Yeah.
thinking about it. But uh, I love so many of the people involved in the making of this movie. And the film holds up really well. And that's thanks to incredible writing of Ernest Lehman. It's based on a best selling novel at the time by Cameron Hawley. And Ernest Lehman was a genius at adapting other literary material. Uh, and this is a perfect example of that. So this is the collaboration of two people who brought so much cinematic splendor to our history. I'm delighted that we're adding this to the Warner Archive collection in Blu-ray.
Yeah, I was looking at the cover and you can barely fit the there's so many names of so many stars. You the promotion, they had a hard time limiting it because it was just full of stars, both behind and in front of the camera. So, and then I noticed on here, I couldn't miss it, that you have a featured commentary.
By Oliver Stone,
Yeah,
who certainly has a perspective on big business.
right.
Having made Wall Street many years ago, um, that commentary is terrific. It was obviously created quite some time ago for the DVD release, but a great commentary is forever great, like a great movie is. And I think people will really enjoy hearing Mr. Stone's thoughts on the film.
Yeah. And then you have some lighter fare on there, the Tom and Jerry cartoon and the Pete Smith special, and then the trailer. So a lot of good extras on this one as well. So this is the fantastic release.
I'm looking forward to seeing it myself.
Yeah. Well, next we have, I think, the only noir for the month, but wow.
It's
This
the
19
only noir for this month. There are many more coming. Hint,
Oh,
hint.
okay. Yeah, just for
Um,
June. That's the 1951 RKO, His Kind of Woman. Tell us about this one.
well, the most important thing about this film is it was the first to co-star, but not the last, to co-star Robert Mitchum and Jane Russell. And they clicked on screen and made more films together at RKO.
Mhm.
And this is almost a noir comedy. It's a very serious noir, but Vincent Price plays a kind of crazy guy. He's like this egotistical gun collector. He's just so wacky that he basically he steals the movie. And it's pretty hard to steal the movie away from Jane Russell and Robert Mitchum. Everybody in this movie is terrific. It's very well written. We do have a commentary by film historian Vivian Sobchak, and we also have a trailer. I'll say it up front now. RKO did not have a trailer department, so they farmed out making their trailers to National Screen Service. And as a result, when the library was sold, there were no trailers that came with all the other film elements. So if we ever have a trailer on an RKO film, it's a rarity. We do have the trailer on this, but the quality leaves a lot to be desired. But it's better than nothing.
That's right.
So if somebody's got a better trailer out there, let us know. We would love to borrow it.
Well, and
But
since
this is a great release, great noir. Obviously, we had it out on DVD before, but once again, a 4K scan off the original nitrate camera
right,
negative.
right.
And it doesn't just look great, it sounds great. I have no idea whether they had started recording magnetically or not, because magnetic recording was just starting to permeate Hollywood at this time. But when I saw the preliminaries on the new master, I was not only thrilled with how great it looked, but also how great it sounded. And that benefits Jane Russell because they always had her sing a song or two in a movie. Because Howard Hughes, who owned RKO at the time, he was definitely her most ardent supporter. And I say that only in the most honest way. There's nothing lascivious going on there. He just uh, believed in her and gave her a lot of great opportunities. And she was definitely a much loved star in Hollywood. But her in a film noir with Robert Mitchum is magic.
Sure.
And I'm so glad that we're putting this out.
And the popularity of Mitchum and Russell, Jane Russell endures today because they were so handsome and beautiful and talented and everything. And these films are so great, especially when you get them now restored so that they're
Right.
looking great in HD. So looking forward to that one. Well, we have one more film, and that is Splendor in the Grass from 1961. What can you tell us about this one?
I would say this is one of the most important films of its time. Uh, it's directed by Elia Kazan. It was written for the screen. It's not based on a play or a book, but written for the screen by William Inge, who, of course, wrote The Dark at the Top of the Stairs and Picnic and Bus Stop. Incredibly talented writer. And for 1961, this movie was constricted by the production code, but it's pretty raw in terms of dealing with the complexities of the main character, Deanie, played by Natalie Wood. This was really her breakthrough performance. Uh, she plays I'd say, high school graduating age girl who is tempestuously in love with her boyfriend, Bud, played by Warren Beatty, making his big screen debut. And under the direction of Kazan, with Inge's writing, it's just an astounding film with great performances and heartbreaking moments and a lot of realism. And I find the film fascinating every time I see it. This should have been on Blu-ray probably 15 years ago. But we had problems in those days kind of convincing people, hey, you need to go back and remaster this. We have an HD master of this film that was done probably, I'm going to say 15, 16 years ago. And that's been circulating on TV and streaming, and it looks absolutely awful. The colors are wrong. Scenes that are supposed to be at night are in the day. It was just it was very magenta tinted. It just didn't look right. Now we went back to the camera negative. There are best colorists and best mastering people working on this. And it's so beautiful. And interestingly, this was not shot here at Warner Brothers, although this is very much a Warner Brothers film. The interiors were all shot at, I believe, the Filmways studio, it was called at the time, in the upper part of Manhattan in, 1960, 61 era. Uh, if people wanted to film in New York City and needed a soundstage, that was one of the few places they had. And Kazan was primarily New York based. So they tell you in the credits that it was shot in New York City. Obviously, the exteriors were shot around the greater New York area. There's nothing that conveys New York at all because this takes place in the Midwest. But I just find it fascinating that they were able to. There were very few major studio motion pictures filmed in New York at that time. It was very rare, and it. This is really one of the great films of all time. Certainly one of the great romances. Uh, you ache for Natalie Wood's character, and you see how really the seedlings of the star Warren Beatty was to become. He was very young when he did the film, and I just always find it poignant. I've been fighting to get this done for a long time, And finally, by having a 4K scan of the camera negative and creating a beautiful new master, it's just astounding. Great performances by supporting members from the Actors Studio, people like Pat Hingle. They're just remarkable. And I would assume a lot of people haven't seen this movie, and it deserves to be better seen. But what we have on the movie, aside from the trailer, we also have a wonderful documentary that was done in the mid 90s. Uh, and it's Elia Kazan, A Director's Journey. And it's a feature length combination interview with Kazan, as well as scenes of his works. It deals with his work on the stage, but mostly his work on the screen. And he just had such an amazing career and influence on so many performers. We look at his body of work just within our library, East of Eden and Streetcar Named Desire, and many others, America, America. He had a good tie to Warner Brothers. And to be able to take one of his great works and give it this kind of stellar presentation is an honor. And that's why I'm really delighted we were able to add the documentary onto the disc.
Yeah, yeah. And you didn't mention it, but it's a 4K scan of the original camera negative. So there you go again. You know, these are fantastic new scans. So, boy, George, you had a 30s film, you have 40s, you have a 50s, and you have a 60s. You covered 4 decades there this month of June. All classic films, just amazing films that people are going to really be happy to add to their collection. So what a month. Plus you've got the 4 film collections and then the
Looney Tunes.
Collector's Vault. Yeah. So what a month. Everybody save your pennies.
And High Society.
Oh, yeah, and High Society now falling into June. So that's going to be quite the month. Boy, we're going to have a lot to talk about in June and July, George.
Yeah,
So,
we've got great stuff coming in July that I'm working on right now. Some big surprises. I promised people that this year was going to hold a lot of things coming to fruition that they had been looking forward to for a long time. And being able to put Cheyenne out on Blu-ray and to give it a sturdy package as well as beautiful new masters. Miguel Gorilla, it's just very, very gratifying to be able to span the library in different ways. And this is definitely a very classics focused month. And we will be doing more of the same next month with maybe some contemporary things mixed in as well.
thanks for coming on as always. And it's always a lot of fun to hear what you're bringing to the fans.
Thank you, Tim. And I look forward to our next opportunity to talk about the Warner Archive Collection.